Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham, right here on TalkTV. We're talking to Isabel Oakeshott. A couple of interesting things coming up. England's Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty and former Chief Scientific Advisor Sir Patrick Vallance are due to give evidence today on the COVID inquiry's 8th day of public hearings. We'll bring that to you as soon as it happens. But a couple of sort of personality-driven stories to talk about, Isabel. Elon Musk, I find it hard to believe this is actually true. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg apparently have agreed to hold some kind of cage fight.
I am so excited about this. I want tickets right now. I don't know whether it really happened. Love to think that it would. There's an actual venue for this thing in Vegas, right, and a bunch of very serious news outlets are reporting it as something that's definitely going to happen. But, you know, who knows? Billionaires, their cage fight challenges come and go, no doubt.
Yes.
The question is which one of them would win. Now, Musk is quite a bit older than Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Very different physiques, and Musk openly saying that he never really trains or works out. But he does have a special fight-winning technique, apparently, which is called the whale, which simply involves flattening his opponent and lying on top of them and doing nothing else.
I mean, if you were to ask me about styles, I would imagine that Mark Zuckerberg is probably quite a goody two-shoes and would just wait for the Marquis of Queensberry rules and sort of stand there. Yeah, whereas Musk, I think, would probably be a really dirty fighter, and you know, and just would win at all costs.
Yeah, I think absolutely. My money would be on Musk in this one, but I'm absolutely envisaging a really fun trip to Vegas to watch this.
Yes. The thing I find fascinating about Zuckerberg is that he spent all of his life creating this meta world, this metaverse, where you can do anything you want in a virtual space. But he actually clearly craves real experience, as I think we all do. I mean, I can't imagine anything worse. When people say to me, well, never mind, you don't have to go to Tuscany, just go into this box and you can pretend you're in Tuscany and you can eat the food and taste the wine and it'll be just as if you were there. Well, no, I want to go there, thanks.
Well, we can't be sure that Zuckerberg won't send some kind of avatar or something to do the fight instead of him. I mean, look, they could make a lot of money by selling tickets to this thing.
Well, I'm sure they don't really need any more money, though, do they?
Oh, I mean, the thing about billionaires is that they don't think to themselves, oh, well, I've got enough money now, so I won't bother making any more. That is not the mentality of a billionaire. Having worked for a few of them, they go on making money. That is their thing. Right up until their very, very, very last breath, they're still thinking about it.
Yes, I'm sure that's right. Speaking of people who are slightly confused about their identity, Clive Mary is trending today on Twitter because the Times have written a story about how he was pulled apparently from delivering the news last Friday night because he was also appearing as the host of How I Got News for You. Now, I don't really mind if he wants to be the host of How I Got News for You, but surely you can't do both, can you? You can't be a newsreader for the BBC and make jokes about Boris Johnson.
Well, and here we go again. It's hardly the first case of this, is it? There was a female newsreader that, you know, expressed her relief at some anti-Tory or anti-Brexit thing not that long ago. They don't learn, these people, do they? I mean, you are either an impartial BBC employee reading the news or you're a political commentator. I know which I am.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you wouldn't be reading the news anytime soon because you've got views which you're perfectly entitled to have, as indeed is he. But he's not entitled to have them and be a newsreader.
No, but, you know, the BBC just doesn't get this, do they? It just on and on. We know now the evidence is overwhelming about the institutional bias within the organisation, and these stories just keep coming back. That said, we haven't heard from Gary Lineker for a while, have we?
He's been very quiet, funnily enough, since the illegal migrant story seems to have sort of become a reality, as opposed to just some figment of everybody's imagination on the left, who think that everybody on the right has just made it up. You know, they're suddenly actually realising that it's damaging the country now, and we need to do something about it.
I don't think he's realising that at all. I think he's just, I don't know, either on a holiday or somebody's told him to go back in his box for a short period. I'm sure he will re-emerge no time soon.
Oh, I'm sure. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one at all. Let's talk finally about Brussels, a place that we used to mention a lot more than we do now. But apparently the European Union has agreed, believe it or not, to the intrusive surveillance of journalists to identify their sources under new draft legislations, which is going to be demanded by France. So basically they're going to be spying on journalists from the European Union. Marvellous, isn't it?
I mean, key question here, can we opt out of this? I mean, now we're technically no longer in the EU, though the government doesn't always seem to realise this. Does this affect the UK? Do you know, Mike? I haven't...
I don't believe that it does necessarily, but it could, because obviously if you're a journalist going into the EU, presumably you will be subject to the same laws that everybody else is subject to. So perhaps you will have this spyware kind of affixed to your device.
Yeah, I don't trust our government on this anyway. We now know in very colourful form what they did in terms of their operations against free-speaking journalists during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, they won't stop at anything. You know, they employed a counter-Daesh propaganda unit in Number 10, normally used to tackle actual terrorist threats, to tackle people that they didn't, who had the wrong views. So, you know, we've got to be very vigilant against this stuff. Up until now, at any rate, it's been quite difficult for the government to latch on to journalists' phones. You know, you have to go through a hell of a process of authorization with the intelligence agencies to get access to journalists' telephone records. That's really important that that's maintained, and I hope that there's no erosion of that.
Well, let's hope not. But it's very, very difficult to know whether or not they would actually be able to impose it upon British reporters who are working in the EU. But I think it would let governments do it. And who knows whether our government, knowing what we know about them, as you say, maybe they've done it already.
Indeed. Well, it sounds to me yet another reason to keep well away from anything to do with Brussels.
Absolutely right. Isabel, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, TalkTV's international editor there.